So after making calculations for energy content per volume for blends versus diesel fuel, I determined that, and also making some observations with blends of waste oils with gasoline, I determined that that a blend of 50% that included 50% gasoline to 50% waste oil would approximate the viscosity and specific gravity and energy content of diesel fuel. So I then blended up a small container of 50% 1040 motor oil and 50% gasoline, and then another sample that was 50% gasoline with canola oil. And both of those samples came out with the right numbers for specific gravity and viscosity. So I went ahead and I acquired some waste canola oil, and I blended it with some waste gasoline that I had used basically for back flushing my filters. So there's going to be a small quantity of free carbon and lacquer from previous motor oil, waste motor oil experiments. In fact, this is the sample, and it's pretty black, but it's been settling for about a week, and I think it's pretty clean, and I'm about ready to run my engine on it. I've made up 20 gallons of it to run my engine on my automobile on it. And I've put some of that, of this sample into this graduated cylinder. And then what we're going to do is we're going to measure the specific gravity and also the viscosity of it. And what we're looking for is roughly 0.84 or thereabouts specific gravity. And this is barely registering on the 0.85. So the specific gravity, this stuff is a little dense, off-scale dense for our taste. Now I've got a hydrometer that goes from 0.85 to 0 to 0.900. And it nearly bottoms out. It's reading 0.860. So I'll record that. Before we go any further, we of course have to measure the temperature to get an accurate specific gravity reading and viscosity reading. 80.6 now, Fahrenheit, which is 27.0 C. Okay, so now let's measure the specific viscosity of our sample of 50% canola oil to 50% gasoline. Alright, so it's 51.2 seconds. And that brings us to probably about 35% gasoline to vegetable oil, because I had put a fair amount of sludge, maybe 3 gallons of sludge that I thought was mostly gasoline, but apparently not. So I think I'm going to try running the 35% gasoline. That'll be a reasonable mid-range experiment. My top end has been 20% gasoline, so, and I'm moving towards that 50% mark, and so I'm going to run this 35%, see if my engine runs any better. A few weeks ago I made the calculations for blends that accounted for how many BTUs there would be in particular blends, and I realized that a blend involving 50% gasoline and 50% waste oil, such as canola oil or 1040 motor oil, would actually have the same number of BTUs as pump diesel fuel. So at that point I decided to start experimenting with adding more gasoline to my blends to see where it would go. And I recently made up a blend that is 35% gasoline and 65% waste canola oil, and you'll see what my engine looks like starting up. This is my 27-year-old Detroit diesel engine starting up on 35% gasoline to 65% canola oil. As you can see, there's very little exhaust fumes. The engine starts just fine, idles fine, and not only that, but I found out that the engine actually has more power than it had with diesel fuel. So I'm really convinced that adding more gasoline than 20% into a waste oil blend diesel fuel is a good thing for my engine. This new blend of 35% gasoline to 65% waste vegetable oil has turned out to be like having a turbocharger in my engine. And my engine doesn't have a turbocharger. So let's drive some hills and see what it's like. Back when I first bought this automobile, it was running on diesel fuel the whole time. I bought it about 4.5 years ago, and compared to other cars on the road, it was quite a slug on diesel fuel. And when my first blending experiments to get vegetable oil to run on the engine, I was looking for a blend that would approximate diesel fuel. Back then I was living in an area that was flat, and so I found 20% gasoline to 80% vegetable oil had roughly the same power of diesel fuel. But when I moved to hill country, I found out that diesel fuel still has more power going up the hill than a 20% blend with waste oil. But then I switched to 35% gasoline, and now it takes the hills as well as any other car out there. Less smoke on acceleration. This is the first time I've been able to keep up with the traffic on the highway going up hills.